All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back, and I have a gentleman on the call, on the telephone. He's going to ask a question of Gary. Welcome to the program. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, hi, how you doing?
Okay.
I would just like to know what his take is on the public question that's on ballot.
Okay, I heard it being discussed. Listen, I got my ballot statement, and it looked like pure gobbledygook to me, the question.
What is it?
But what is it about? And I'll give you my opinion. Because I heard it discussed on another show this morning.
Is this for diverting money somewheres, or what was it?
Yeah, it's diverting money. It shows an amendment to Article 8, Section 2 of the state constitution agreed to by legislature, which prohibits collection by the state of assessments.
Does it have anything to do with pensions and money being actually dedicated for something if that's what it's supposed to go for?
Oh, you're talking about, okay, it's a state, that's a state issue, not a federal issue.
Right, it's a state issue, yeah.
Well, he's running for Congress, which is a federal thing.
I still would like to know how he feels on that issue.
I probably feel the same way you do. You know, that they're being dishonest, they're being sneaky with us, and I think this referendum issue takes care of that. It's really there for us, but it's the grammar is so complicated. It's lawyer talk that it's hard to even understand it. Listen, I'm not coming to you as as an established politician with a career in this. You know, I'm really one of you folks, and I work a full-time job, and you can't believe how much time this takes up. I haven't even watched the news in weeks, and I used to be a news junkie. But so I'm sorry if I can't address it specifically.
No, that's okay. But you know, it's more or less what I was thinking too, also.
Thanks. I have a feeling.
It makes no sense what they're stating in this question.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it is ridiculous. I'm trying to read it here, and even the interpretation of the statement is a mess.
I mean, just clean up the language
and figure out what they're trying to do here or what they're trying to say here. So, when in doubt, throw it out.
That's it. Vote no.
But this one actually might be for us,
but
we both know anyway.
Right, yeah. You can go backwards that way, too. All right, thanks for your call.
All right.
Bye. All right, yeah, that was, it's all a trick question, that's for sure.
They never learn.
All right.
Just spell it out in English that we can understand.
On your page here, yeah, you've got a whole thing here. You are for, of course, reducing the size of the government.
Absolutely.
It's necessary, no question about it.
I've always said that, you know, the private sector does it all the time. Why is it so difficult? And they could do it through attrition, if nothing else. That would be a token gesture on their end. But they don't do it.
No, it's on autopilot. It says here, I'm for single-payer health care.
I told you that.
Right. You are pro-choice?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Lobiando was pro-choice too in 94, 96. Nobody knows that. It was convenient for him to be, oh God, he's going to come after me after this is all done. It was convenient for him to be pro-choice in 94, 96. He was running against a liberal opponent in the primary, and that opponent, Bill Gormley, had a well-thought-out position on abortion. He happened to be pro-choice, and he said it was a very tough, difficult thing. And Frank Lobiando, Bill Gormley gave a very elaborate answer to that question, a serious answer. When Mr. Lobiando was asked the same question by the Atlantic City Press, readers submitted a question. Mr. Lobiando had days to think of an answer. He says, Mr. Lobiando said, well, the question was, how would you feel about if your 18-year-old daughter or something was pregnant or something like that? And Mr. Lobiando said, every 18-year-old woman has the right to answer that question. I mean, a crazy answer, but he was pro-choice back then. He was on record as being pro-choice. Same thing in 96 when he ran against a liberal Democrat who had money. And then that was his last tough race. And then he was riding that term limit thing. He was getting endorsements by the papers because he was for term limits. And then you had people like me coming up to challenge him, a 29-year-old, an 81-year-old, a black woman from Atlantic City who really wasn't familiar with the issues, and she said when she got to Washington, her advisors would fill her in. But that's the caliber of the people. Someone like me who's pretty good with the issues, but doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together to do this. And this is what, and he doesn't debate this year. He warns, this is what we're up against. Entrenched, and he ran against Washington in '94. He should know better.
Says here you're ramping up, for ramping up nuclear power.
Absolutely.
And you support George Bush's rescue of the banks.
that's what I consider it. Frank Lobiano calls it the Wall Street bailout, as if we're there, as if we're for saving walls, their mansions in Connecticut. Like that's what the thing was all about. It was about credit, the credit market freezing up within days. Lehman Brothers, they went out. It was about Goldman Sachs going out of business, for God's sake, because it's all confidence with the banks. Whether they can get overnight loans, you know what I'm talking about. And that we were on the verge of a calamity. And Mr. Lobiano, that's what he sent to Washington to do. A lot of congressmen are losing their bids for re-election this year because they stepped up to the TARP. Now that was George Bush who was president then, not Barack Obama.
Right, the toxic gas relief plan.
Right.
And of course he was for that.
No.
Oh, he was against.
He was against it.
TARP.
And again, yeah. And it's all over his campaign literature, against the Wall Street bailout, as if that's what it was, just nothing more than a Wall Street bailout. Never mind that Mr. Lobiano voted in '99 to repeal Glass-Steagall, which set the whole thing up. And then Mr. Lobiano, at a debate in 2008, when Kurkowski pointed that out, said, well, there was 300 of us that voted to repeal Glass-Steagall in 1992. What he didn't say was that those other 300 stepped up to the plate in 2008 and put their careers on the line, and he didn't. And the editorials are saying he was courageous for doing that. He did whatever the callers wanted him, whatever the constituents were clamoring for that call in to his office.
You see here, it says you're for spending more money to make the border secure, and you're almost ready to declare war on Mexico's incompetence and corrupt government.
Well, it's 10 to 6.
You don't have enough time.
Yeah, I don't have enough time. That's how I got in this in the first place, because, you want an honest guy? That's me. I had illegals live with us for 5 years. And we have someone else living with us now, a 25-year-old guy that's an American citizen that was thrown out of his house, basically, when he was 16, and worked for the cable company. He comes to install the cable at our house. Next thing you know, he's living in that. We live in a big house. It's my wife and myself, no children, and he's there with us now going to college. So it was a situation where the one brother showed up at our house. We knew of him. He knew the kind of people we are, and we took him in for years. He's back in Mexico now, and I've been down in Mexico, and it's an absolute disaster down there. It's just atrocious. They've got the most beautiful country, all the resources in the world, and they can't get to first base because of the petty corruption, not the drug cart. Well, that place is bordering on chaos now.
Right.
But a couple of years ago, the cartels weren't as powerful, and it's the petty corruption that forces them to come here. So my idea was to point a finger at Mexico and stop having Mexico blame the government. Having them blame us. And my friend who's back in Mexico now, he understands why we need a secure border. He understands this whole country be running here. And I've been down there. I've seen this firsthand, and they got everything. It's beautiful down there. I go on.
Yeah,
there's a lot to cover.
We've sent billions and billions of our own dollars down there.
Oh, and that's been wasted.
Yeah.
It's called the Merida Initiative or something, and that's this government-to-government waste. But I always felt that the illegals here could send a message back to their government home if they didn't send money back to Mexico, the remittances, and their families back home would suffer for a little bit, and maybe Mexico would get the point and go after this petty corruption, which is so simple. A couple of stings, and they'd fold, these lousy cops in these little towns would fold like a cheap camera, and the word would go around, And what would Mexico do? They're not getting the money from us. The whole world's watching and observing what's going on down there because we focused. But that's so complicated. But that's how I got into this 2 years ago, to talk about that.
It's amazing. Well, you do definitely have love for the country, because if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have taken the effort to make this even this far.
You get it.
Yeah. All right, quick break. The sponsors need the word, and we'll be right back with Gary Stein right here on 1240 WSNJ.